in the last part of Luke 11:37 to 54. That when Jesus had finished speaking, the Pharisee invited him to eat with him, so he went in and reclined at the table. But the Pharisee was surprised when he noticed that Jesus did not first wash before the meal. Knowing this, then the Lord said to him, Jesus said to the Pharisee, "Now then, you Pharisees clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness," meaning you don't have the spirit of the law in you, the goodness, like the fruits of the spirit didn't have that. You just have an outward show. Okay. You foolish people, 40. Did not the one who made the outside make God the Father? God, men make the one who made the outside also made the inside. That's God. But now, as for what is inside you, be generous again to the poor, and everything will be clean with you. In other words, he said one of the big wrongs: they aren't giving; they're just taking. Right? They don't have the spirit of the law inside. They just have an outward look. Right? Woe to you, Pharisees, because you give God a tenth of your mint, like the Old Testament, because Christ was just starting anew, and rule and all the kinds of garden herbs, but you neglect justice and the love of God, the real things that matter, right? The weighty things, as I explained. You should have practiced things from the inside, the latter, rather leaving and not leaving the former undone, because there's still the Old Testament. Christ was just starting anew as far as 10%, because the New Testament just says, give what you're able. Okay, because the Old Testament didn't have all the taxes we have today. They just paid the 10%. That was it as a tax. Anyways, anyhow, woe to you, Pharisees, because you love the most important seats in the synagogues and respectful greetings in the marketplaces. Woe to you, because you are like unmarked graves, which people walk all over without knowing it. He's calling them unmarked graves. In other words, they're worthless. They're going to be thrown in Gehenna fire. People are going to walk all over you, meaning you're not going to exist much. You better change. One of the experts in law said, you're offending us, basically, and gleaming. Jesus replied, and you, the experts of the law, woe to you, because you load people down with burdens that you can hardly carry, and you yourselves will not lift one finger to help them. In other words, they're hypocrites. Woe to you, because you build tombs for the prophets, and it was your ancestors who killed them. In other words, you're condoning it, he means here. So you testify that you approve, as I just said, what your ancestors did. Okay? They kill the prophets, and you build their tombs. In other words, you're approving. Because of this, God in his wisdom said, I will send the prophets, apostles, New Testament, some of whom they will kill in the old, and they will persecute. Therefore, this generation will be held responsible for the blood of the prophets that has shed from Abel right to the end, because they condoned by building the metaphor, the tombs. Okay. Yes, the killing of them by their ancestors. Yes, I tell you, this generation will be held responsible for it all, plus Jesus Christ. Woe to you, laws of experts. You're away the key, that you reject it, but you don't let others enter into it. When Jesus went outside,